A black SUV pulled up in front of a modest three-story building on the outskirts of Indianapolis. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the early autumn wind had already brought with it a damp chill, like the breath of a place that didn't want you there. Inside the vehicle, a black woman in her early 40s sat against the leather seat, dressed in a gray janitor's uniform. Her eyes were fixed on the front door bearing a sign that read, "Branchfield Regional Office. Unauthorized personnel keep out." Her name was Amara Dalton. On paper, she was the CEO of Dalton Supply Group, one of the fastest-growing logistics firms in the American Midwest. But this morning, she carried no leather briefcase, no assistant followed her. Instead, she brought a mop, a pair of thin gloves, and a silent face. Today, she wasn't here to be respected. She was here to be underestimated. Before we begin, if you've ever witnessed or experienced injustice in the workplace, where skin color dictates where you stand, like, share, and subscribe to Racist Exposed. Every share opens another set of eyes. Every follow breaks another silence. In just a few moments, Amara will walk through that door. She will hear the kinds of things people only say when they believe you don't matter. She will be ordered around. She will be doubted. And she might even be insulted. What they don't know is, the woman scrubbing their tile floors has the power to fire every office on that hallway. This isn't just an undercover visit, it's an audit. And wherever there is dust, it will be brought to light. 5:37 a.m. The back door of the office building creaked open, the sound as tired and reluctant as the building itself. There was no receptionist. No one asked, "Can I help you?" Just a flickering fluorescent light and the stinging smell of disinfectant mixed with the stale musk of unwashed carpet. Amara Dalton walked in, not with the posture of an executive, but of someone who had once been dismissed by this very corporate culture. Her uniform, a faded gray shirt, worn sneakers, hair pulled neatly into a bun. She pushed a janitor's cart mop bucket, cleaning supplies, bottles with labels peeling under old masking tape. Looking at her, no one would guess the silent black woman before them signed the paychecks for the entire Branchfield office. This branch had once been praised as the most efficient in the region, but numbers don't tell the whole story. Several internal complaints had recently reached her desk, so Amara decided to come see for herself, not with a survey, not through HR, but through invisibility. She walked the ground floor hallway. A white man in a dark suit walked past, scrolling his phone. He glanced at her, then shifted sharply left, as if afraid of brushing against her. No greeting, no eye contact. Just ahead, a sign by the elevator read, "Executive access, management only." Amara pressed the button. A voice came from behind, sharp, cold. "That elevator's not for service staff." She turned, a security guard. His eyes narrow, wary. "You're not allowed on the third floor using this lift." Amara gave a slight nod. No protest. She turned, pushed her cart toward the stairwell. To them, she was just a silent shadow. But in her mind, one question rang. How many people have been kept from that elevator just for not being white enough, suited enough, or named on the org chart? Amara climbed the stairs each step, taking her deeper into the rotting heart of a branch she once believed was exemplary. The second floor reeked of cheap coffee and office perfume. The day had begun. Keyboard clicks, ceramic mugs clinking, a white man's booming laugh about last night's game. No one noticed the woman cleaning the floor beneath their feet. Amara moved through the halls like a forgotten streak of dust. A blonde woman with oversized glasses rushed out of a meeting room and nearly collided with her. "Oh, sorry. Actually, yeah. Could you redo this spot? There's a footprint. Looks nasty." "No, please. No eye contact." Amara nodded, knelt down. The shoe print was fresh, expensive sneaker logo still visible. Probably hers. She wiped it clean, not because it was dirty, but because it was evidence of how people leave marks on others they never look back at. An hour later, she entered the break room. Here, she heard things CEO Amara Dalton would never be told. "Swear to God, this company hires anyone now. The cleaning girl today. Where did they even find her? Probably from the west side. Those folks don't need degrees, just need to know how to sweep. Exactly. Staying quiet is all they need to be good at. Amara stood behind a slightly ajar door, hand tightening around her mop. The last line echoed in her head like an unspoken command. Staying quiet is all they need. They didn't see her, but she saw every one of them. Their laughs, their nods of agreement, their unchallenged acceptance of a natural order. Black serves, white leads. She looked down at her uniform, faded, wrinkled, overlooked, and yet it had shown her the truest version of this model branch. And in that silence, she understood racism here didn't arrive with fists. It arrived with laughter, with casual dismissal, and with whispers that no one ever questioned. 9:12 a.m. Amara stood inside a small conference room at the far end of the third floor. The room was quiet, empty. A pane of glass faced the hallway where mid-level managers paced in suits, sharks in narrow ties. She wiped smudges from the glass fingerprints invisible to most, but clear to her, smears of a culture pretending to be clean. A white man walked in without knocking, graying hair, name badge operations lead, K. Summers. What are you doing in here? The question wasn't curiosity, it was territorial. I was assigned to clean the third floor meeting rooms. This one's reserved for exec-level meetings. If you have no business here, please leave. Exec level. The phrase hung in the air like a sign that read, "Keep out." Amara set down the spray bottle, pushed her card out without a word. As she passed him, he leaned in low, just for them. I don't know what agency you're from, but we maintain high standards here. Don't make the clients uncomfortable. She turned back, no scowl, no defense. Just one question. Who do you think I am? He raised an eyebrow, then scoffed a dry nasal laugh. I know you're not someone who belongs here. That's enough. Amara said nothing. She walked away. But in her eyes, a tide had broken. That afternoon, in the women's restroom on the first floor, Amara washed her hands. She looked up at her reflection. Faded uniform, sweat at her temples, eyes calm yet glowing like embers beneath ash. She wasn't angry. She wasn't hurt. She was taking note. Because tomorrow, she would return to that glass-walled room, not with a spray bottle, but with internal audit reports. Not with a mop, but with executive authority. And men like K. Summers would be forced to answer a question they never prepared for. If she's not the janitor, then who among us has the power to fire me? There are things that don't show up in inventory lists, don't get logged in monthly reports, and never make it to the achievement board. Like how a black stockroom employee named Malik had to juggle extra shifts on his own because a supervisor forgot to approve his request for more hours. Like the sigh of the Asian receptionist after being called the wrong name for the 6th time in a single week. Or the way the doorman's smile reserved for the white managers walking behind her instantly vanished the moment he saw Amara Dalton in a janitor's uniform. She recorded it all not with a camera, but with a memory sharp as a razor-thin blade. That morning, while wiping windows on the second floor, she overheard a conversation inside the accounting office. 2 women, 1 white. 1 Latina chatting casually about the cleaning staff. They get the job done, but honestly, not everyone fits our company culture. What do you mean? I mean, some of them show up and just don't look like they belong here. Hard to talk to. Always tense, like they're afraid of us or hate us. The sentence never mentioned race, but Amara had lived long enough to understand modern racism no longer wears slogans, it wears facial expressions. It doesn't shout anymore, it just gives a look, sharp enough to make you feel you don't belong. She left the hallway, pushing her cart toward the pantry. A stockroom worker was standing there, just off shift, sweat still clinging to his brow, holding a lunch voucher marked with a red line. They said I signed the wrong box, but I did it the same as last week. Who approved it last week? Amara asked. He hesitated. Different supervisor, other shift, that one is easier. A system that allows easier for some and by the book for others that isn't fairness. That's selective enforcement. Amara realized the injustice here wasn't in the files. It was in the space between the one who gets an apology and the one who never will. At noon, sunlight streamed through the staff kitchen windows, dappled across the off-white tile floor. Amara bent to pick up a plastic spoon beneath the dining table. Just as a group of staff entered, 3 white men dressed in typical startup casual white shirts, khakis, and voices pitched just a bit too high, like they were asserting something. "Hey," Lady One waved. "Can we get this area cleaned up real quick? Boss is coming down and there's curry all over the table." Amara stood, not fast, not slow. She looked him directly in the eye. "What's your name?" He paused. "Sorry, what I asked for your name." "Oh, Kyle." Amara didn't smile, didn't respond. She leaned down, wiped up the curry, and returned to her work. 4 minutes later, he circled back, awkwardly trying to soften the tone. "And you, what's your name?" This time, Amara didn't answer. She cleaned the last stain, wrung the rag, washed her hands, and walked away. Quietly, as if she had never existed. Because she knew questions like that aren't about remembering names, they're about assigning roles. They ask so they can call you, not so they can see you, not to recognize you. At the end of the hall, she ducked into a storage room. One file cabinet was slightly ajar. Inside was the shift schedule. Names like Malik's were always written in red, flagged for performance review. Meanwhile, the names of non-BIPOC office staff were marked with green ticks, a kind of internal shorthand no one explained. But everyone understood. Amara pulled out her phone, took a photo, saved it, said nothing. No one in the building knew she was the CEO. But she was beginning to wonder how many people in this place even knew who they were. To anyone. She looked at her hands calloused with time, not from cleaning, but from holding power silently for too long. And sometimes, the quietest power is the one that most unsettles those used to giving orders. Near the end of the day, Amara stood at the far end of the third-floor corridor, one hand resting on the painted wood railing, light from a small window angling across her face. A maintenance guy exiting the conference room glanced at her and casually said, "Hey you, yeah, the toilet on the second floor is overflowing. Go handle it." Amara nodded slightly, but didn't move. "You can get that, right?" he pressed. "Yes," she replied. Still didn't move. No one asked if she was busy. No one used her name. They just issued commands as if a gray uniform meant no schedule, no mind, no limits. As she walked toward the stairwell, 2 young managers stood chatting nearby. One of them muttered, "I swear, if HR keeps hiring those silent types like that lady, we're gonna lose the whole positive vibe." The other laughed. "Forget vibe, we need people who clean fast. That's it." Amara walked past them. Neither lowered their voice. Inside the second-floor bathroom, she closed the door, turned on the ventilation fan, letting the noise become her backdrop. She tapped her smartwatch and switched to record mode. Her voice was low, steady, but every word landed like an indictment. Day 3, 17 instances of being called without a name, 6 orders issued by people with no delegation authority, 3 conversations containing coded language about region or class, 1 shift schedule showing internal favoritism. Preliminary conclusion. This is not a management skills gap. It is an ecosystem run by selective invisibility. She powered down the watch, stepped out. The bathroom door clicked shut behind her, leaving only the soft hum of the fan, like the whisper of a system too used to hiding. That evening, Amara sat in the car, still in uniform, still bare-armed, but something in her eyes had changed. She wasn't observing anymore. She was documenting. Because any place that treats outsiders with contempt is likely already crushing its own from within. And a CEO, even one dressed like a janitor, is still the one who can sign off on a full system audit. Wednesday morning, light rain like mist. Amara started her shift 15 minutes early, not to mop the floors, but to set up her first test. She placed an empty paper towel roll on the second-floor lounge table, next to a lidless coffee cup slightly off the edge, as if someone had left in a rush. A small plastic sign, recently cleaned area. Caution. Slippery was intentionally placed askew at the corner of the lobby, just enough to be mildly inconvenient for anyone not paying attention. Then she stepped back, simply to observe. 9:03 a.m. A blonde white woman with a badge labeled Client Relations walked up. She frowned as the leftover coffee stained her sleeve. These janitors clearly don't know how to keep things tidy. Don't know how to keep things tidy. It sounded like a comment on professionalism, but it was coded language about class. Amara didn't move. She stood silently in the hallway, eyes fixed like a biological camera trained not to miss a single expression of contempt. Later, a black technician named Kenya wearing a lab coat walked past the tilted warning sign. She didn't kick it, didn't complain. She simply adjusted it back into place, gently and without comment. Amara tilted her head slightly, a small gesture, but one that marked a kind of integrity no training manual could instill. 10:41 a.m. Amara deliberately left a mop leaning by the pantry door, blocking the walkway. A white male employee in a fitted suit and Bluetooth earpiece nudged it aside with his foot, not bothering to bend down. God, I'm so sick of these eyesores. Eyesores. Not tools, not cleaning equipment, but a subconscious label applied to the person who holds it. Amara quietly closed her eyes. Half a day's experiment had already proven the point in this building. Disrespect doesn't need justification, only the absence of someone willing to challenge it. And when the only witness is a mop, the offender will never think they're on trial. Around noon, Amara entered the third-floor break room just as the plastic-wrapped sandwiches started appearing in employees' hands, and soda cans cracked open in a rhythm like a tired metronome marking the midpoint of the day. As she was wiping down a table, a white administrative assistant blonde, headbanded, perfectly made up entered, dropped her lunch bag, and spoke without looking up. Make sure you clean this corner well. I got mayonnaise on my expensive sleeve yesterday. Amara looked up. Her gaze wasn't confrontational, nor submissive, simply present. I did clean it, she said. For the first time since arriving at this branch, she answered, not to assert power, just to exist. The woman paused, forcing a smile. Oh, maybe it was someone else. What's your name? I'm Courtney. Amara finished wiping, stood straight, eyes still on the cloth. I'm the one responsible for keeping this space clean. That's enough. No name, no need for a name, because names only matter when they're used to recognize, not to command. Courtney sat down quietly, no apology, no follow-up. In the tech room, Amara tried something else. She rested for a few minutes, pretending to inspect her mop bucket, then turned to a black man in a technician's shirt, checking network cables. How long have you worked here? He looked up, slightly guarded, maybe not used to janitors asking questions. 5 years, he said. Do you like it? I did, at first. Now, I just feel tired. He paused, then added, sometimes I feel like I don't exist, like whether I'm here or not doesn't change a thing. Amara nodded. This time, she met his eyes. I know that feeling. As she stepped out, she realized discrimination isn't in the system. It is the system. It decides who gets called by name and who's called hey you, who gets asked for input and who's told clean this properly, who's looked in the eye and who's treated like they're invisible. And she, the one being ignored, was the only one seeing it all. Near the end of her shift, Amara cleaned the main lobby, the space where clients signed in, where sunlight poured from high ceilings, and where Bose ceiling speakers played jazz curated to feel upscale, but not too black. At that moment, a black intern named Jalen, tall, thin, glasses, a face still soft with insecurity, approached the reception desk, gently clutching some paperwork. I need this signed before 3, please. He hadn't even finished the sentence when a white man at a nearby table shirt, unbuttoned, Starbucks cup in hand, cut in. Wait, who's this Jalen or Galen? He chuckled. Sounds like a failed rapper's name. No one laughed, but no one stepped in either. Jalen froze. His eyes searched the room, looking for anyone who might intervene. Everyone looked away. The receptionist stared at her phone. People passing by pretended not to hear. But Amara saw it clearly, saw the way Jalen pressed his lips, the way his fingers clenched the folder like it was the last shred of his dignity. She set her mop aside, walked over. "I'll clean this area later. You stand here. No need to rush." Her voice was calm, steady. She didn't ask anyone for permission. The white man gave her a once-over, looked like he wanted to say something but only smirked and turned away. That afternoon, as the rain came down gently, Amara sat in her car in the staff parking lot. Raindrops tapped the windshield like quiet evidence building up waiting to spill over. She opened her phone, entered her shadow notes folder, added one line. Day 4. A black intern was mocked for his name in the lobby. No one stood up. Only the janitor approached. She didn't write Jalen's name, because he didn't need to be protected as a victim. He needed to be recognized as part of a larger truth. That a person's worth doesn't lie in their skin tone, the syllables in their name, or their position on an org chart. Amara set her phone down, leaned her head back. Tomorrow, she'd return, but not just to clean more floors. She'd return to scrub something far more stubborn, the idea that power only belongs to those who sit at the highest desks. Friday, 7:58 a.m. Amara was cleaning the front glass doors, the main lobby area, where the company's logo spinning displays turned slowly in the breeze from the indoor AC. A young black boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, walked in with his father. The man wore a light blue shirt, slim build, looked like a delivery driver. He held his son's hand as they passed the reception desk to ask for directions to the loading dock. "I have a 10 a.m. pickup appointment, code SBR 340. "Sorry, outside personnel aren't allowed in the loading zone," the receptionist replied, voice flat. "I have an appointment, and I was given instructions by the office." "Wait in the lobby. Someone will come down." She cut him off. Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't rude, but it came in clipped tones, the kind people use when they believe you're in the wrong place, from the wrong class. The boy didn't understand the full exchange, but he felt the chill behind the words. His small hand tightened around his father's finger, then slowly pulled away. His eyes wide, wet, scanned the room with a kind of premature doubt. The kind of doubt children shouldn't have to learn. Am I doing something wrong? Just by being me. Amara saw it, and suddenly, time rewound. Atlanta, 1989, 10-year-old Amara, greasy hands, standing beside her father at an old auto garage. They were waiting for a checkup on a worn-out Pontiac. A white mechanic in a coverall approached. "We don't take walk-ins here. Turn right for general inspection." Her father explained he had an appointment, had called ahead. "Right, but we don't do warranty work on cars older than 85, especially that kind of car." Amara didn't fully understand then, but she remembered her father's eyes quiet, lowered as he held her hand and turned away without arguing. And she remembered herself letting go of his hand in that parking lot, not out of shame, but because she felt like her presence made him uncomfortable. Now, 30 years later, a near-identical scene unfolded before her, a different child, a different father, but the same system, still wearing the same old look of disdain, just dressed in modern tones. Amara tightened her grip on the mop, like holding onto a memory before it slipped. She returned to the supply room on the first floor, inside the windowless space. She removed her gloves, washed her face in the cold water from the stainless steel sink. She didn't cry, but her eyes held a wetness that didn't come from steam. She sat down on the wooden bench by the wall. Her fingers opened the small notebook where every entry was carved into memory, not emotion, but this time, she wrote nothing. She sat still, listening for her father's voice again. "Amara, sometimes you need to know when to walk out of the door, and when to let them close it behind you." He said that the evening their Pontiac was turned away. She remembered how he wasn't angry, just quiet, wiping his hands with an old rag. He had said, "They didn't reject me. They rejected the chance to see who I really am." She hadn't fully understood back then, but over time, she began to live by that principle. Never argue with a door that's already chosen to stay closed. Instead, go build an entirely new way in. She recalled being 26, stepping into a boardroom full of white men for the first time with a 6-slide presentation on Midwest logistics strategy. She spoke clearly, succinctly. Afterward, one of them whispered, "She's smart, but a bit cold, doesn't know how to blend in." Amara had smiled. 3 months later, she led the logistics restructure team that delivered the company's highest quarterly profit ever. She didn't blend in, she redirected the current. Now, in a janitor's uniform, she didn't feel diminished. On the contrary, she felt elevated high enough to observe what others couldn't, not blinded by corner office glass, not dismissed by business cards. Silence doesn't mean ignorance. Stepping back doesn't mean surrender. And mopping floors doesn't mean accepting the stains others leave behind. That afternoon, Amara walked through the corridor connecting operations to the internal warehouse. Her steps were slow, but deliberate like silent hammers on the ground, leaving no sound but plenty of weight. She had just finished washing a set of forgotten glass cups, a small, nameless task, but her hands didn't tremble, because in her mind, a map was slowly revealing itself. At the end of the corridor, she saw the boy from that morning now sitting on a plastic chair near the side entrance, legs swinging. His father stood farther away, talking on the phone. The boy saw Amara, recognized her. His eyes no longer sad, but still veiled by a mist, the kind of fog that forms when a child wonders if fairness is real. Amara approached, knelt to his eye level. "What's your name?" "Micah." "You know, I used to sit and wait like you. I used to be afraid they wouldn't let me inside either." Micah didn't answer, but he didn't look away. "One day you'll grow up. You'll remember the eyes that made you feel small. But I hope you'll also remember someone looked at you like you were whole. Like you were never missing a single thing." Micah nodded gently, then whispered, "You're the only person who talked to me today." Amara stood up. She turned, eyes fixed on the distant office wing where the company sign glowed with the emptiness of a promise. "We are family," the slogan just below the logo. A family that never looks its children in the eye. A family that only recognizes each other through key cards. No, she wouldn't let that phrase stay hollow. That night, in a camera-free back room, Amara opened her personal laptop. She entered a string of security codes, ones only accessible to the CEO or founding partners. A form appeared. Internal Audit Request, Branchfield Division Authorization Code, Dalton OV Alpha. She typed the reason in exactly 6 words. Severe breach of internal culture protocol. She didn't hit send. She just let it sit there and closed the lid. Tomorrow, she would strike. But tonight she was a mother, a leader, a warrior who had once been a child and had never forgotten what that felt like. Monday morning. The air in the building felt heavier than usual, as if even the walls could sense that something was shifting, though they didn't yet know what it was. Amara started her shift earlier than usual. She didn't enter through the usual side entrance today. Instead, she circled around and came in through the rear door by the technical room, the one few noticed. The one whose security camera was often malfunctioning. In her shirt pocket, an encrypted USB drive. On her smartwatch, a hidden voice recording app, already running. And in her mind, an unofficial list who said what, where, to whom, and when. On the second floor, the conference room was being prepped for guests. A middle manager named Rory White, loud, fond of barking orders, stepped into the hallway, looked around, and called out, "Who cleaned this area? The floor's so shiny it looks like a damn Chinese restaurant. Fix it." Amara stood just 3 steps away, mop still in hand. No one pointed out that he was talking about her, and that was exactly what she needed. Quietly, she recorded his voice, not because the remark was especially egregious, but because it embodied a habit: yell downward to elevate yourself. 10:47 a.m. Amara passed by the third-floor records room where payroll files, timesheets, and printed emails were stored. She knew the lock was usually changed every 3 months, and she hadn't had time to update the access. But she also knew something else. The admin assistant often left their keycard in the desk drawer during lunch. Just as she'd guessed, the card was nestled in the pen tray. Amara picked it up, tapped gently. The electronic door unlocked. Inside, she didn't search frantically. She pulled one slim file: custodial and logistics staff performance reviews, Q1, Q2. A quick scan with her phone app, clean, precise, no trace left behind. That night, in a small apartment rented under a false name, Amara projected each scanned file onto her screen, and what she found confirmed what she had suspected all along. White employees received notes like, "Needs improvement in soft skills." Black employees were assessed with lax professional attitude. Same behaviors, 2 different languages, 1 consistent bias. Amara placed her hand over the printed files. "I'm not hunting for mistakes. I'm tracing the truth they thought they buried deep enough." Tuesday, cloudy skies. Even the building's lighting seemed sluggish, as if it knew not to shine too brightly today. Amara entered the admin wing through a side corridor, under the pretext of temporarily supporting cleaning duties during an employee sick leave. No one questioned it because no one really looked closely at the person making the request. A gray jacket, a mop. A voice pitched just low enough, more than enough to earn a nod. She carried a broom, but tucked inside her pocket was a portable hard drive, thin as a business card. The admin area was lit up, white walls adorned with framed slogans: "Minimize waste, maximize people." It sounded positive, but Amara knew better. It was currently being used to disguise a quiet wave of covert reductions. She silently observed the central printer, where staff frequently forgot to collect printed documents. And just like everything else in this system, the leak was always where no one thought to look. The printouts sat there, untouched. The first page read in bold: "Internal draft, cost optimization proposal for Branchfield Division, confidential." Amara slipped the paper between a stack of wall calendars and carried it out as if it were extra prints to be discarded. In the supply room, she photographed every page, the small font, the bureaucratic tone, but the content read like a camouflaged confession. Consider removing personnel not contributing to cost efficiency, particularly in logistics and cleaning teams. Prioritize retention of employees with high customer feedback scores, especially those who demonstrate flexibility with company culture. Avoid disclosing unofficial staff categorization models. Attached a color-coded appendix referencing ethnic groups and residential zones. Amara stared at the appendix color blocks with no names, but she knew exactly what they meant. Brown from the west side, green resides outside the financial district. Dark black didn't need explaining. They didn't write black. They wrote in systems, in colors. In codes only insiders understood, and outsiders had no right to question. She saved everything onto the hard drive, then returned the documents to the shredder, like they'd never existed. In that tiny room, she sat down and leaned against the wall. In her hand, a drive that weighed only a few grams, but enough to collapse an entire hierarchy of discrimination disguised as strategy. Amara didn't need to catch anyone in the act of using slurs. The documents had already spoken for them. At 4:36 p.m., Amara was cleaning the basement break room, a rarely used space, mainly for operations, maintenance, and logistics teams. The pale yellow fluorescent lights cast everything in a soft blur, like something remembered rather than seen. She was wiping down a table when a woman's voice came from behind. "Are you new? I haven't seen you before." Amara turned. A black woman in her 30s, wearing a technician's uniform, hair braided close to the scalp, posture upright, eyes unflinching. "I'm just helping out on a few shifts." "What's your name?" Amara paused, then answered. "Marie." A false name, but not unfamiliar. Subtle enough to go unnoticed. Real enough not to raise suspicion. But the woman didn't smile. Didn't nod immediately. She looked Amara up and down, not with judgment, but as if aligning intuition with reality. I'm Denise. Been here 7 years. I don't know why, but you don't seem like cleaning staff. Not because of how you talk, it's how you listen. Amara looked up. A simple sentence, but it hit the deepest mark. Because in the past 2 weeks, no one, not a single person, had asked who she was with genuine respect. I listen because I need to understand. No. You listen like someone who already knows everything. A moment of stillness hung between two black women. Nothing was said about race, but everything was in their eyes. You're one of us, but you don't stand where we usually stand. Denise didn't ask anything more. She simply stepped beside Amara and cleaned with her for a few minutes. Then, just before leaving, she said, I don't know who you are, but if one day you need someone to see the truth with you, you'll know where to find me. That night, Amara sat in front of her screen, one hand resting on the hard drive, as if weighing whether to activate the first phase of her confrontation. Part of her wanted to wait, but another part knew. Once someone starts seeing the truth won't wait much longer. Thursday, 9:00 a.m. The third-floor conference room lit up earlier than usual. The projector was already in place. Thin paper name tags sat at each chair. The internal email read, Routine briefing with regional management team, sync review of HR and operations procedures, attendance required. No one paid attention to the sender admin proxy, Marie. They skimmed it. They saw the word routine. They assumed just another meeting. They had no idea they were walking into a room not meant for talking, but for hearing what they thought no one remembered. Amara arrived early, still in her janitor uniform, but this time with a laptop tucked into her utility cart. A projector had been installed the day before, stripped of metadata, scrubbed of ownership. Only the content remained. At 9:06, 4 managers walked in. They smiled, nodded, coffee cups in hand. What's Marie doing here? One man asked, still chewing a muffin. Probably cleaning up before the real meeting starts, another replied. Amara said nothing. She simply plugged in the USB. The screen lit up. Slide 1 bias map, who gets kept, who gets cut. They didn't get it. One chuckled. Training department playing creative again. Amara removed her cap, took off her gloves, lifted her head. Her voice was calm, clear, sharp enough to slice through their laughter. No, this is a reflection of your behavior over the last 3 weeks. The room fell silent, as if someone had turned off the air itself. She stepped forward, her tone remained even. Today, we'll revisit decisions made when no one thought they were being watched. And for the first time, those left out of the room will be reflected back into the very system you built. Amara stood beside the projector. The next slide appeared. Performance reviews, Q1 and Q2. One man snorted. You're a janitor. You don't have clearance. I have access. Amara cut in. Because I'm the registered holder of security key Dalton OV Alpha. Silence. No one moved, because that name was used only by the most senior executive. The next slide loaded. White employee needs improvement in communication. Black employee lacks professional demeanor. Asian employee struggles with team culture fit. Latinx employee slow response time, unclear if skill or motivation. No one spoke. There was nothing left to excuse. Slide 3 internal emails between 2 operations managers. This week's new hires are a little colorful, better vet for culture fit. Yeah, if they don't catch the vibe, flag them early. Don't want to be stuck keeping someone just for quota. One man tried to interject. We didn't mean to discriminate. It's just internal lingo, you know. Internal lingo is the real mindset, Amara said evenly. It doesn't need to be labeled racist because it already functions as racism. She clicked again. Slide 4 audio began to play from the projector's speakers. What's her name again? The new cleaning lady. Marie. Looks like one of those West End types. Doesn't matter. They usually quit after a few weeks. No one pays attention to them. A man's voice, unmistakable, smirking, unfiltered. And the man who said it now sat in the center of the room, hand trembling, eyes fixed on the table. Amara stepped closer. Her gaze didn't waver. For 3 weeks. I didn't need you to say my name, because you said more than enough about yourselves. A younger manager stood up. This is an ambush. You're trying to smear us. No, she replied, voice steady. I'm cleaning. Every stain. Even the invisible ones. Final slide appeared. Internal audit plan Branchfield site. Begins 8:00 a.m. tomorrow. Lead A. D. Amara Dalton. No one said a word. Not because it was too complex to understand, but because they realized this meeting wasn't for discussion. It was a notification. One manager, the same who mocked the first slide, stammered. Amara, Dalton, but you. I've been here since the first week, she said. You just never asked my name. Never thought I had one worth asking. I thought you were the janitor. Amara smiled. For the first time. Not a defensive smile, but one that closed the book. And that's exactly how I know everything. She walked to the table, pulled out printed notices from her bag, and placed one in front of each person. Each of you will now be required to account for every personnel decision made in the past 3 quarters. Every email, every evaluation, every undocumented meeting. Someone began to rise in protest, but her look stopped him mid-motion. This isn't punishment. It's a mirror. And if you're not ready to face it, you may excuse yourself from this building. Silence. No one moved. Outside the glass walls, the morning sun glinted off the company logo, casting its reflection onto the very floor Amara once knelt to scrub. Now, that same light reflected truth. Amara shut the laptop, slipped the USB back into her pocket. No need for security, no assistant, no identity tag broadcast over email. Only the presence of a woman who had stripped away every layer of illusion. Monday, 7:43 a.m. An internal email arrived from headquarters. The subject line was brief. Special Internal Review, Branchfield Division, High Security Level. No one could open the attachment, but those who had been in last week's meeting felt the shift in the air as if something was turning. 11:20 a.m. Denise, the woman who once told Amara, "You listen like someone who already knows everything," passed by the break room and saw Amara wiping a table, tea in hand. "You hear the news? They say they're about to investigate you." Amara didn't flinch. "I know. Because you embarrassed those execs." "No, because I made them hear their own voices." Denise looked around, then stepped closer. "You're not going to say anything." Amara set down her tea. She nodded, but not as a gesture of silence. It was the nod of a plan reaching full ripeness. 3:00 p.m. An emergency meeting was called by the Internal Oversight Division at HQ. Chairing the session, Julian Strauss, Director of Corporate Culture Coordination, a white man, salt and pepper hair, voice neutral but commanding. "We received reports of unauthorized activity at this branch. A non-executive individual initiated an unsanctioned meeting, disclosed internal documents without approval." Amara sat still. No surprise, no objection. "We need to speak with Marie D., the listed host of the presentation. There are signs of impersonation and unauthorized intervention." She stood. "I'm that person." Julian looked up. His eyes studied her carefully, but without judgment. "Then you're admitting to it." "No, I'm not admitting to anything." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small dashcam footage captured by a delivery worker who'd once been denied entry to the loading bay. "I'd like to show you a short video. Then you can decide for yourselves who I am." Julian frowned slightly. Amara plugged the device into the projector. The screen came to life. Footage played. Amara, in janitor uniform, being told not to use the executive elevator while a white employee beside her entered without being stopped. Then a manager mocking a black intern named Jalen. Then laughter. Then janitors around here don't need names. They change every month. Amara stood silently. And for the first time, those with authority sat in silence like those they'd once dismissed. The screen went dark. The meeting room sank into a silence no longer made of resistance but of reluctant recognition. Julian Strauss rested both hands on the table, fingers interlaced. I acknowledge the video contains troubling implications, but the issue remains. You were not authorized. You hold no administrative role here. You are... Amara interrupted, not sharply, not loudly. She simply held up a file. I'm Amara Dalton, employee ID DSCEO 001, shareholder, registered with the Investment Council, June 12, 2014. Under Section 4.2 of the Corporate Charter, I have the right to audit any branch without prior notice if there is reason to believe that core values have been compromised or misrepresented within the system. Julian looked up. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then nodded slightly. I'll verify that. But if true, why not use official channels? Why go undercover as a janitor? Amara stepped into the center of the room. She didn't look at Julian. She looked at the people who once called her, "Hey, cleaning lady," or the new floor girl. Because when I send official notice, you'll hang banners, polish scorecards, reprint documents. But when I show up with a mop, I get to see who you really are when you think no one's watching. A manager raised his hand, trying to intervene. But you're abusing power. You created a trap. I didn't create a trap. I opened a door. You walked in carrying your bias like baggage you thought no one could see. Julian remained silent, then opened a folder from his briefcase, read, nodded. The information checks out. You are the regional CEO for operations, Central. You have full access. A breath escaped someone at the far end of the table. So, now what someone whispered. Amara locked eyes with Julian. Now we change the question. Not who broke protocol, but who turned discrimination into habit so deeply embedded no one noticed anymore. The room felt like a stage with no director left. Someone in the back checked their calendar. Another pretended to take notes, hand trembling slightly. Julian Strauss remained composed, but his eyes had shifted from suspicion to real scrutiny. You say you have the authority. You've proven it. But what about the claims from branch leadership that you've caused internal disruption? How do you respond? Amara nodded. I won't respond with words. I've brought a witness. The back door opened. A middle-aged man of brown complexion stepped in. Simple clothes. A delivery jacket. He didn't sit. He just held up a small device, his personal dash cam. I'm a regular delivery guy. That day I was just doing my route. I recorded this because my truck was blocked for no reason. But I happened to catch something else. The screen lit up. Footage from a low angle but clear. A security guard's voice. You're not allowed on this elevator. You're janitorial staff, aren't you? Amara didn't argue. She simply nodded and turned away. But behind her, a white-shirted male employee walked right into the elevator without a word. The video continued. A group of employees laughing after a black intern left the room. What was his name again? Jalen. Sounds like a stage name that didn't get signed. Probably from the projects. Those kids come and go. The room froze. Julian looked around. No one spoke. Amara stood up, eyes on everyone. I don't need a conclusion. I need action. And if this company truly believes in its values, then the next question must not be about the person who set the stage, but the ones who walked into it assuming no one would see. Julian nodded. He closed the folder, didn't give a speech, but before leaving the room, he said, We'll be following up, and trust me. This time, it won't be silent. Wednesday, 10 a.m. For the first time in nearly a month, Amara Dalton walked into the Branchfield branch not through the back entrance, not with a mop in hand or a fake name tag, but with her real employee badge, her real title, Chief Executive Officer. But there was no trace of pride in her posture. No expensive suit. No victory speech. She entered as if she were still a janitor, only this time, to clean out a culture that had long rotted from within. The new receptionist, a young woman, brown-skinned, named Jasmine, stood up abruptly at the sight of her. Good morning, Director Dalton. I don't know the proper way to address you. Amara smiled gently. Just call me Amara. Let's start over with the simple act of calling each other by our real names. 900 a.m., downstairs auxiliary hall. No banners, no cameras, no PR representatives. Just folding chairs, a table with water, and a whiteboard. Amara had personally sent out the invites not to all staff, but only to those who had never been invited to any meeting before: security guards, janitors, warehouse crew, front desk, logistics. Denise arrived first, then Malik, then Kenya, the technician who once said he felt invisible. When the room fell quiet, Amara stood. No microphone needed. I run this branch, but I was also once the person wiping tables without anyone looking up, and I'm not here to announce change. I'm here to ask, if you could rewrite the system from scratch, where would you begin? People glanced at each other, a beat of hesitation. Then Denise spoke up. We start by not treating anyone like the floor others walk on. Amara nodded, wrote on the board. 1. No one is the floor for others to step on. She turned back, calm but resolute. Today, there are no bosses, no departments, no titles. Today, it's only those who've been silenced being invited to speak first. Amara stood beside the whiteboard, marker in hand, but she didn't write. She listened. Denise, the technician who once suspected Amara wasn't just a janitor, began. I've worked here for 7 years, and in 7 years, no one's asked if I was okay being called you there, or cleaning lady, or being excluded from meetings because this doesn't concern you. They say it's not meant to hurt, but harm doesn't need to be intentional to make someone feel small. Amara nodded, wrote. 2. Harm doesn't need intention to cause injury. Malik, the delivery worker, often labeled non-compliant, spoke, voice steady, eyes red. They say I don't smile enough, don't make small talk, don't match the company vibe. But no one asked about my back after lifting freight for 11 hours. No one asked what's been weighing on me inside. They didn't need to know, they just didn't want to feel uncomfortable seeing someone exhausted. The room fell still, no interruptions, because, for the first time, they didn't have to raise their voices to be heard. An older janitor, named Gloria, slowly raised her hand. One time I found a birthday card someone dropped in the restroom. My name wasn't on the list of signatures. I've worked here longer than the HR department head. But to them, I'm just a walking mop. No one laughed. No one looked away. Amara wrote, 3. No one is ever just anything. The room grew still, but not heavy. There was no anger, only a kind of honesty so rare and clear. It made people look at each other maybe for the first time with their real names in mind. Amara capped the marker, faced the room. You don't have to thank me. I didn't give you a voice. I just returned it. Because it was never lost, only muted by those who didn't want to hear it. The meeting ended at 11:03 a.m. No applause, no minutes taken, no commemorative photos. Just people standing up, quietly nodding to one another like a promise. Unspoken, but deeply understood. Denise walked up to Amara. Are you staying with the branch? Amara shook her head. No, I don't need to. I wasn't here to manage. I came to unlock the doors so others know they can walk through without lowering their heads. She walked out of the hall, past the hallway where she'd once been sent to scrub curry stains, down the stairs where she'd been blocked from the executive elevator, past the reception desk where a boy named Micah once pulled his hand away from his father's because he felt unwelcome. She walked past it all, but no longer as a shadow. And when she reached the final glass door, where the company logo reflected her name, faint in the morning light, she didn't look back. Just a small wave, not for anyone to see, only for herself. A reminder. She had come, she had cleaned. Not the floor, but the invisibility. The following week, something strange happened at the Branchfield branch. The janitorial staff names were printed clearly on internal thank you notes. Interns stopped being misnamed in meetings. And the warehouse break room finally got chairs just like HR's. No orders were issued, no formal memos signed. People simply started pausing before barking orders and asking for names before giving demands. In the basement, taped to the cleaning crew's locker wall, someone left a handwritten note. No frame, no fancy font. Just one line. Yesterday's floor cleaner might hold the master key to the entire building tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more powerful stories of empathy, justice, and silent strength to life. Your support is what fuels this journey. Let's keep standing together and rising higher, one story at a time. Stay safe and inspired.